Good morning and blessings. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me this morning. I apologize about my late start. It's been a very interesting morning, to say the least. I'm having such a late start that I actually have my coffee here with me on the sidelines as well as my water. I want to thank all of the new subscribers and everyone who is stopping by here for the very first time. It really means so very much to me to even share a portion of your time and attention. All of the messages are divinely guided that I share, and it is about sharing. It's about sharing the information, holding space for one another, and being seen and being welcome into a sacred space where you can be seen as the truth of you. I am Tuesday May Thomas, and this is my live stream called 4D Trinity. Move our board in a little bit. Perfect. So today's topic is Defy Depression, the Metaphysics of Mental Illness, which is a pretty darn big topic. I do say so myself. I'm so grateful if you are dropping by to say hello in the comment box if you are so guided. And this is the first time, I know I've done tarot with the AC unit. The only place the AC unit is here, and this is where I do all my recording. So I just want to make sure that you can hear me. If you cannot hear me, please drop a line in the comment box. I will speak up or I will pull in a little bit closer. Oh, depression. So we're going to hit this from a few angles. First, I'm going to share a little bit about my story and my experience with depression. And then we're going to start to get involved in this conversation of what this metaphysics aspect of depression looks like and how you gaining an understanding of what it looks like can really help to empower and serve you as you move forward in your day-to-day life. And that's what I needed. I know when I was up against a wall, it was having some tools. It was having a new language. It was having a new way to see things and to think about things that really resonated with me, that helped me to pick myself up at those times where I was very, very low. So first things first, a lot of you know, and of course, I don't even have my book here with me, but a lot of you know that I am an author. My links are down below in the show more box. And I have written a book called The REIKI Apprentice, in which the majority of all of this information is in. And when I was younger, I had experienced sexual, they call it abuse. As I look back, I feel that it was sexual manipulation, in that realm of abuse, because it was with someone I knew that was very close to me, but I was ignorant. I didn't know any better, so I allowed the perpetuation of a certain situation to happen. Yet because of my shame about that situation and a part of me knowing that I could know better, that I should know better, as I started to learn that I didn't have to say yes, that I could have said no to those situations, I started to build shame and I started to eat. And I became incredibly overweight as a youth, and I was bullied in school. Now, these are not big, huge things. A lot of people could say, well, I was sexually abused or manipulated when I was young. I was also bullied in school. And yeah, I was also a large child. So my point in telling you this is that these are my set points. These were my set points for my story of later in life, as I began to grow up and meet life, I would realize that these interactions, these situations that I had as a youth regarding being bullied, regarding this exchange of sexual energy, really thwarted and it warped the way that I moved through my life situations, my relationships, because all I could see was life through those lenses, life through those visions of who I was in the past. And later in life, it caused me a lot of depression. And you know, depression, it doesn't have to, but it can go hand in hand or very closely align with suicide. And by the time I was 13, I was definitely thinking about and entertaining thoughts of leaving this life and how I might do it, and scraping my wrist and exploring morbid ways of clocking out of here, of this plane. I didn't know how to handle all of the intense emotions I was feeling inside of me. And also, I feel I was definitely an empath. And I say was because while those traits are still within me, those abilities, those sensitivities, I have learned how to master them. And so it doesn't, being an empath doesn't master me. It doesn't, like a group of wild horses, take me from my center where I don't know how to be present with those faculties. Yet when you don't know how to be present with those faculties, when it's the beginning and you're realizing just how sensitive, how psychic, how intuitive you are, it can be really, really scary, especially if you have things from your past that have marked you and that cause you to be depressed. So again, my points are, as a youth, I had very significant experiences that caused me to be depressed, that were my reasons for not liking myself, for practicing self-hate, for feeling like a victim in the world, etc., etc. Over many years feeling depressed, up and down. I had moved to New York at a certain point, and I remember I was maybe 26 years old, and I was finding myself at a different loop, at a different place of feeling a level of depression that I hadn't yet. And I was having many morbid thoughts about how I would kill myself. And a part of me decided to call the hotline, right, the suicide hotline. So I did, and the woman talked to me very calm and led me through a series of questions, and we were having a gentle conversation. And then she asked me, well, how do you want to kill yourself? Because I had told her that. And when I had expressed to her in great detail this morbid fantasy of suffocation, which I won't go into here, she right away said, I think you need to come to the hospital right now and check yourself into the psych ward. And I was like, no. Back then, especially, I was knee deep in being a conspiracy theorist. And so my mind right away was like, I just need someone to talk to here so I don't go over the edge. I'm not going to go check myself into the psych ward where you guys can plug all sorts of medications and weird things into me, and I can become even more removed from my truth. There was a part of me, you see, that had already started meditating, that had already started doing yoga. I had been meditating since I was a teenager. I'd been doing yoga since my early 20s. And I think that was a saving grace, even though I didn't realize it at the time, for my ups and downs. But where things really started to shift is I had two really miraculous healing experiences when I was backpacking, one in Greece and one in Australia, 2 years apart from each other. And they inspired me. They had to do with Reiki. And I had never heard of Reiki before. And they inspired me to find a Reiki teacher, which I did. And it was the instant that I received my level 1 attunement, where I started learning Reiki as a modality to apply to help heal my life. It was like within a 24-hour period of receiving that first initiation of the level 1 that I was released and freed from that part of me that wanted to kill myself, that part of me that was always a voice back here. Now, again, perhaps your depression doesn't always walk with the shadow of death by it. But ultimately, that is what's happening. If you feed it enough, it will become this creature that is the shadow of death. And I walked with mine constantly, like that dark cloud. Yet, again, the moment I started learning Reiki, the moment I got my level 2, it was like all of a sudden, all of those heavier, denser feelings, those fear-filled feelings of shame, of guilt, of being a victim, all of that stuff completely dropped off. And all of a sudden, it was a different me. It was a different level of being in the world. And I started to learn through this modality about the forces of light and dark and the importance of maintaining my light in lieu of maintaining my sanity, maintaining my peace. And I started to learn a new language for the light and the dark forces, for understanding how they work within me and understanding the metaphysics of my own mental illness. What I became a student in and started to learn is that we are all multidimensional beings. We exist here, now, and we also exist through the past, through the present, through the future, and we exist on a quantum level that is infinite to all dimensions that we could ever imagine and beyond we exist in. So there are an infinite number of versions of you at any given point in existence in this hologram of a universe that we exist in. Now, this may or may not resonate with you. You may be looking for something different when it comes to defying depression, understanding mental illness, but please stick with me. I'm not sure how long of a show it's going to be. It might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, but I have a lot to share with you here. And we all have a story, you see. We all have those set points of something. And I will get into it because I know sometimes it's hereditary with some folks. And they feel that there's not a specific divorce or sickness or some life traumatic thing that happened that has them depressed. Rather, it's in the genes. And they would say it's hereditary and that they've received this way of being through their DNA from their ancestors, their mother, their father, their grandparents, and etc. So we'll branch off. We will honor that. Yet my point in introducing my story to you is that learning that I was multidimensional, that I was more than just this physical body, that I had focused on for so much of my life with being sexually abused, that's physical. With overeating, being overweight, that's physical. With being bullied, poked and prodded, yelled at, shouted at, made fun of, that's physical. That's all 3D. Oh, blessings. Someone has just popped in and said hello. Let me throw the glasses on and see who this is. Blessings, Kasia. Thank you so much for joining. I pray that all of the information I share here really serves you and everyone on the path here. So in understanding this new language in this conversation that I could start to have with myself on behalf of the light force within me and on behalf of the dark force within me, I realized how empowering this actually is. And to learn that I am a multidimensional being and that I have free will. This was the biggest thing, is to learn that I did not have to be a victim of my circumstances any longer. That I could in fact change my mind about my circumstances and I could change them through my mind. And this is a part of that metaphysics. And what is metaphysics? Metaphysics, there's so many different ways to talk about it. I like to think about it as it's the study and the practice, the observation and the application of understanding the invisible nature of the way our universe works. And as we gain an understanding of what's going on behind the curtain, what's going on in the invisible, generally untangible levels of our energy dynamics as a being, as a physical being, as an energy being, as a spirit, when we start to understand that language, when we start to understand our relationship with the metaphysics of the universe, we can start to get an upper hand on things. We can start to all of a sudden dismantle that which seemed so mysterious and that which had so much power over us. all of a sudden I stopped being the victim. I mean, and for years I was a victim. That was my signature. Like if we had a stamp, an energy stamp in our aura, it was victim. That was me, like my Vegas lights of where I was walking around energetically. That was me. But you see, I learned that I had free will. And I learned, as Marianne Williamson would say, that free will is the ability to think anything that you want at any given time. And that really tripped me up. Because just recently, I have a dear friend in Europe. I have many dear friends in Europe, and I'm going to look at my phone here now. But I have many dear friends in Europe, and she had posted something, and I took a picture of it. I will often do this. I'll take a screenshot of things because they have something special there for me to either discuss or to think about. So I'm going to go into this, and I want to read it to you because it summed up how I felt back in the day, but also I could feel into how she's feeling. And it says, when you're depressed, you don't control your thoughts. Your thoughts control you. I wish people would understand this. Okay? When you're depressed, you don't control your thoughts control you. Well, this is exactly what I believed and what I thought my whole life, and that I was just a victim. Yet what I learned through learning a spiritual practice is that I can indeed switch that around, that I can learn how to control my thoughts. I can learn how to master my mind. And in doing so, completely shift the energy timeline that I exist on, completely shift all of those feelings in my mind, in my body, in my emotions, to the light. To the light. Our job in understanding the metaphysics of mental illness, in defying depression, the way that I'm going to share with you here, and perhaps it's just one piece of the puzzle, and if you take anything from this today, then our job is done. But what it's really about, and it's very rudimentary, is you being cool, you being okay with being a physical body on a physical planet, period. That's the metaphysics. Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. That's the metaphysics. Really and truly. Like that if you can come to a place in yourself that truly can surrender to being in this physical body, in this 3D body, on a 3D planet such as this that we find ourselves on, then when you have complete surrender, when you have complete allowance of that, then the functioning of your mental state is allowed and given a free space in which to shift and to change. And as long as we have a block to being in this body, a block to being on this planet, then there is not a flow of divine life force energy, getting into the metaphysics now of the mental illness, to give us a sense of grounding and anchoring. Our job is to ground and to anchor to the earth. If that's all we focused on, if you're depressed, mentally, feeling mentally askew, in that mentally ill realm, if that was a great part of your focus, you would see the energy begin to shift in you, through you, and to you. Why? Because according to the traditional set points of the 7 chakra energy body, the root chakra resides at the base of the spine. It is that which is closest to earth. It is that which resonates and has a particular curriculum in store for us that pertains to us being in a body, us being on this planet, and us feeling a sense of belonging, us feeling a sense of grounding and being present and being okay with being grounded, being in a body, being on this planet, and being present. It is the initial part of us that says yes to life. And when we are not saying yes to life, all of our capacity to take life in through the base of the spine, through this first chakra, is negated, is limited. And very simple, rudimentary practices, such as being in nature, taking your shoes off, touching your feet to the dirt, the gravel, the water, the rain puddle, whatever it might be, instantly affects our energy body. And we're going to make some pictures. We're going to draw and get into this here shortly. And you see, what I learned is through learning this new language and learning these tools, learning how to understand the energy dynamics of my body, what I came to understand is that we have something called spiritual willpower. And it's one thing to exercise your free will in the third dimension, right? Which is related to your third chakra. Your power to be here in the world, your power to be clear and true about who you are and what you are in the world, and to own it confidently in the present moment. And when that's cut off, again, not only can we not get up to the higher chakras, but into the heart ultimately. Spiritual will speaks to our ability to choose love and light over fear and death. And it is that ability to choose that, to exercise that over and over and over again, that develops this muscle of spiritual will. And when we have spiritual will developed, we can shift the scales of the tipping point into love and away from fear. And we no longer have to walk as that victim, as that version of ourselves that feels helpless and hopeless. Let me have a look here. Blessings. Blessings, Sarihi. Good morning, darling. So there are many levels of this, because I also understand that it's a huge deal if you're even watching this. If you really suffer with depression and mental illness, and if you're even watching this, I'm so grateful, because it's the kind of thing, the dark force, which we're going to break down here shortly, it's the kind of thing that will do its best to keep you away from gaining insight and learning information and learning how to see your illness or your depression in different ways, so that you can become masterful in understanding it. That's the shadow, that's the dark's job, is to keep you in the dark, is to keep you bound to the self-hate, the self-loathing, the self-blame, the jealousy, the triggers, the shame, the whatever all the stuff is regarding your stories. That's the shadow's job, is to keep you suspended in perpetuity to those realms, to those grids, to those feelings and emotions, because then it starts to feed off of you. You know, when we perpetuate those lower frequencies over a long period of time, it weakens our aura. So I think we're going to start to draw here. I just want to make sure there's nothing else that I'm forgetting to say here at the very beginning. So I wanted to use the board for you, so that we can think about these ideas in ways. So first of all, we were talking about the root chakra. Make sure where I'm drawing here. So we're going to imagine that you are a tube of light. And traditionally, along this tube of light resides the spine, your spinal column. And along the spinal column are energy centers called chakras. There's your root chakra that we've been talking about. Okay. So we're going to think, here's the root chakra here at the very bottom. This star in the center is your heart. Again, our job, first and foremost, is to activate and to open, to calibrate the root chakra. For when we do, this is the grounding rod that calibrates all of the upper chakras with regard to them organizing themselves in a way that serves your third dimensional experience of being a body in a planet. When the root chakra is blocked, when it is not activated, when it is not given the correct opportunities to enliven itself, to breathe, then all of our ability to receive the nurturance, the nourishment, the fortification, the grounding of Mother Earth, which is vital to our well-being, to us just living a peaceful life, all of that gets cut off to varying degrees. And I think it's going to come up backwards here. It is. This is so weird. So I'm going to see if I could write it backwards. Earth. There you go. So we get to connect. We get to work on connecting to Earth. And you know what I think is so interesting? Because the word Earth can transpose into heart. And ultimately, this is what we are talking about. You can't see that down there, but ultimately, this is what we are talking about. If you take the words, the letters of the word Earth and switch them around, you can find the word heart. And that's where we're going to. We're going into this heart center. We're going into realizing that your true power is in recognizing your power to love. When you love, you light up. Your energy lights up. And when you light up, when your lights of creation become blazed, the less the dark, the tar, the shadow can be present with you. So there's a story in the spiritual realms that talk about the spirit and the soul, that it can be fragmented. That you can sell your soul, that you can lose a part of your spirit, that you can have a damaged soul, that you're a young soul or an old soul. I don't believe that. I don't teach that. The soul is the soul, is the soul, is. Yet, the fractal of lessons of where the truth of the soul, being the soul that is the soul, the wisdom, the divine presence of that, can be blocked through our incarnations of being in a body, on a planet, and forgetting the absolute wholeness of that. And so we have our healing practices, we have our journeys through which we go to clean the lenses, to heal, to connect to the earth, to remember that we are one, that we are whole, and that we always have been that. And that's our job, to do that. So that's just a little nugget for you, knowing that you could never sell your soul, you could never ultimately be fragmented. That's a part of the illusion here. Again, this root chakra, as it connects, as it is given the rite of passage to connect down with Mother Earth, you are anchoring your energy. You are saying yes to your heart. And ultimately, it's like all those movies. It's the light and the dark. It's love or fear. That's the duality that we live in this universe, on this plane, in this 3D. We don't have to, but it's the first initial training ground that we all come into, is dealing with light and dark. And when we start to understand those forces inside of us, that's when we start to gain a level of mastery. So here you are. This is you. This is your physical body. This is your mental body. This is your emotional body. So we think about the aura, we think about our energy, and we think about how the bodies organize themselves and how they really create these divine shields, these orbits of atoms around us. Depending on what's going on in my physical body is going to reflect what's going on in my mental body, is going to reflect what's going on in my emotional body. So another part of our understanding depression is that a lot of it has to do when the root chakra is closed, there is what gets turned on is the inability to nurture ourselves, the inability to take care of ourselves, to nourish ourselves with good water, good healthy food versus fast food or junk food. If your body's already undergoing the stress of you feeling depressed, and then you put in a food that the body has to work harder to process, and there's no nourishment in it, it's going to keep edging your body into a place of fragmentation because it has to work that much harder to find its unity, to feel sustained properly, not just for a high and a low, but to gather more of that middle path zone. You know, when you eat better, when you drink more water, whatever it is, when you bless your food. And it's these things that can slowly start to translate into the chemical shifts in our physical body. But again, it's understanding that you have free will and that you can think whatever you want to think. And what you think is going to reside in this layer of your mental body that is an extension of your aura. And we have many different layers in the aura. But for now, we're going to think about the physical body, the mental body, and then outside of the mental body, the emotional body. So all of the thoughts that I've ever had about myself, about being a victim in the world, walk with me wherever I go. If you believe in past lives, then all of those beliefs and all of those ways that you've ever been hurt, that you've ever been abused, that you've ever experienced, you know, violence, trauma, pain, huge life events, all of that carries with you over into each next life to the degree that you are able to heal those things and work them out so that they don't keep walking with you through next lives is the degree that they will be there. If you don't believe in past lives, then think about just this one life. If it's just one life for you, then think about all of the occurrences that you've had in this one life that have caused you pain, that have caused you to feel that mental illness, that depression, that suicide. What are the things there, right? Because we think about a timeline. Okay? We think about a timeline and we think about, say this is the part of the timeline where you are born and this is where you are here, okay? And we can consider all of the things that we've ever experienced in this life that have marked us, right? So for me, it's as a child, having these very odd and confusing sexual abuse manipulation situations, right? That's marked my timeline. And then later, being bullied in school, having odd sexual altercations because of my past, because of as a youth, having a misunderstanding and just a complete violation of experience. And as I grew older, understanding that I was violated and that I was a victim of circumstance, and how I hated those that surrounded me at that time for not telling me that I could choose differently in those circumstances. All of that stuff gathered, right? It marked my timeline. It marked my timeline. And so I walked. If we just talk about this one life, all of those things that you walk with, whether it's from your childhood, whether it's from last week or 2 weeks ago, but those things that we don't let go of, that we walk with, that walk with us, what happens is that everything here that's on your timeline that you have not cleansed, that you have not given and grounded, that you have not created the correct opportunity within your spirit, within your body-mind continuum to heal, to cleanse, to forgive, to practice, whatever it is, to make amends with that situation. If these things that have marked your timeline are not given those appropriate means to be processed through you, to be put in one end and out the other so that you can be cleansed and purified, what happens is they start to gather in your aura. Okay? So they start to create these little sticky static points in your mental body. They start to create them in your emotional body. Okay? And all of these little sticky, barbed wirey type places in the aura reflect, again, these parts of our life that have yet to be healed. Yet as we walk with these warts, with these thorns in our aura, what happens is over time, the degree that we give power to these memories and hold them even stronger here, excuse me, and hold them as truth. Excuse me, like that is my story. They hurt me, they abused me, the world is fucked up, you can't trust anyone, I'm gonna lock myself in my room. And I know that's not everyone's story. And again, I understand. This could be hereditary, it could be in the genes, it could be from a past trauma that you have the experience of depression, the experience of mental illness. And right now, what we're doing, where we're going is I'm talking specifically about certain things in your timeline that has affected you, that could be marking your aura, right? And we'll get deeper into the metaphysics of the light and the dark here. Yet, even if it's genetic, even if it's hereditary, that's a story too. That is a story too. And that's a story that we either decide to walk with or not. And I know that's a big deal, right? To think about things in that way, but I'm just inviting you, if you're here and if you're watching this, whether it's right now, this Thursday morning, or you stumble across this at some point and you really severely suffer with depression, I pray that you stick around and you just let the words wash over you, and that perhaps you'll get something out of this, because I know when you are desperate, when you want to end your life, when you don't want to leave, when you don't care about anything, when you can't even get up to brush your teeth or eat, or you just don't care, nothing matters, and you're in that self-destructive mode that is just limiting, isolating, it's very difficult to say, yay, yes, new information, great, let me meditate on this. It's very challenging. So I'm grateful that you're here. And if there's anything here that can help you in serving and holding space and sharing with others, then blessings be it. So what happens is, whatever the story is, genetics or past trauma, is that this stuff gathers in our mental body, gathers in our emotional body. And these areas create openings for more of that like energy to come in to meet it, for more pain, for more sorrow, for more reasons for these things to be validated for us. But we also get to know that as we reside in that zone that is depression, and you really believe that you cannot control your thoughts, well, then who's controlling it? When there's the dark side, the dark force, the tar body, and the light side, the light force, the light body. If you're not controlling your thoughts, then who is? And this is a huge question. And this is the one where I had at least this much light inside of me to say, fuck that. I am taking my thoughts back. I had realized that I had given my life, I had given my thoughts, I had given all of my mind and emotions over to the past, and I was allowing that to rule and run my entire life, gathering speed. And as all of these openings, these cracks reside in the aura, what happened is I kept drawing into me, and maybe this happens to you, experiences that kept reflecting those lessons that I went through as a youth, whether it was through bullying, weird sexual manipulation interactions, learning how to hold my psychic space and create healthy boundaries when it came to the physical body, sex and sexuality, or just being in space, in time, in the world. And the more and more that we do not heal these parts of ourselves, the more and more we invite in more dark, more tar to sustain itself. The tar body is the toxic twin of your light body. We can think about the light body being basically the version of us that is plugged into love. How bright, how much are you plugged into love is equal how bright you can imagine your light body being. How much you are plugged into fear will demonstrate the magnitude of the tar body. Because what happens is, as we continue to perpetuate these thoughts and these beliefs, which is that's exactly how depression, how the metaphysics of this works, is that we have enough of these openings. We have enough to be down and depressed about. And the tar body loves that, the dark part of us. It starts to feed off of the shame, off of the victimhood, off of all of these parts of us that feel helpless and hopeless. And it says, yes, keep those cracks in your aura open, so more dark, lower, denser energy can attach itself to you. Because that's what the tar wants to do. It wants to feed off of our tar, the greater tar body of the earth, the greater tar bodies that inhabit other people. Their shadow, their dark side, loves to feast on our shadow, on our dark side. But the less shadow we walk with, the less tar we walk with, the less we have to have those kinds of interactions. Yet it is worthy of being commented on, because I know for me, this is how I learned my edge of becoming a master of my time and space. This is how I learned how to be unfuckable with. Your soul is unfuckable with. It is not something that can be sold to the devil. It is not something that can be cracked or fragmented. It is not old or young. Your soul is. And the moment that you get with that paradigm and you allow it to resonate is the moment that we go from having all of these openings in our aura and having the repetition of certain experiences over and over again, where the point comes that we're not just in our layer of our mental body that has a few cracks and fissures and openings and tar attachments due to our past timeline, and where our emotional body doesn't just have this. But what happens is enough tar, if it's given way to, if we don't bless our food, if we don't say some prayers, if we don't have some affirmations, if we don't read some positive books, if we don't hang around in the right environments, if we don't get out into nature, get some sunlight on our skin, there are some really basic things. And if we don't do them just to keep the root chakra of your energy system calibrated just enough so that you feel at least comfortable enough to be in a body on this planet, and you start to work from that point, what happens is the tar body, the toxic twin of your light body, begins to generate its own sheath and layer of energy in your aura, in your energy body. And it becomes a film of darkness that life becomes filtered through for you to see. Here we go, the God phone. Hey, blessings, God. Good morning. Oh my gosh, what a morning. It has been wild. Yes, but I'm so grateful. No, I can't forget. I know there's a lot. There's so much to share this morning, and I'm really grateful for this topic. God says hi, everyone. Okay, so later we're going to look into A Course in Miracles. We're going to look up death. Okay. Okay. Does that have to do with depression? Yes. All right. All right, dear God. Well, thank you and namaste. We'll check that out later. Blessings. Okay, so interesting. The God phone rang, and God you know, which according to this show, to 4D Trinity, is the feeling realization of oneness. That's all God is. And that, the expression of that is saying that we could look up and read a little bit about death in A Course in Miracles to tie things in. So we will get to that. And what I wanted to share about this tar body phenomenon and how it becomes this layer that walks with us. It becomes this grimy film through which we see this distorted, you know, perception of life, of things around us. When we're walking with that tar, we think the world is out to get us. People are trying to kill us. Everyone's talking about us. We become very paranoid. And the world's unsafe. And of course you don't want to go out in the world. Of course you don't want to shine your light and be your full, beautiful self, if that's the case. Of course not. And let's talk about the tar body properties here for a moment. So again, if we think about things from a past life, and we think about these experiences we've had along our timeline of so many past lives, and how those issues, whether they were relationship, again, whether they were about abuse, whether they were about you abusing others, things that have unforgiveness, where you've been hurt, betrayed, all that stuff. If you walk with all that stuff, that is toxic. There's a certain amount of that stuff on the tipping scales, if you can imagine, that are weighing scales that you can walk with and have a certain amount of peace with. But there's a certain amount that if that stuff is not worked out and the scales tip in the other direction, your life is going to be hell on earth versus leaning towards heaven on earth. So the tar body is, on one hand, an accumulation of all of the mental and emotional and physical trauma and experience we've had through all lifetimes, through all time, space, and dimensions that have not been worked out yet, that have not been healed and brought to zero, that you walk with now. The tar body loves your pain. The tar body loves your depression. It loves when you are self-destructive, when you hate yourself and others. It loves when you're angry. And it's not to say that we can't get angry, that we can't have feelings of shame or jealousy or feel like a victim once in a while or have a good cry. It's not to say that at all. There's a rhythm. There's ups and downs in lives. Yet it's when we're on that downward slope that just keeps going down, 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 down. And if we're miserable and unhappy, and we really feel we cannot control our thoughts, yet there's a part of us that wants to, even if it's that little tiny part, that's your light body. That's the perfection of your soul saying, come on, this is not the truth. Yet your tar body will do its best to say, oh yeah, no, the world sucks, you sucks, you're no good, there's no point. And so it will keep you down, down, down that rabbit hole in the darkness. Now, so we know that the tar body is a result of all of these unprocessed feelings of hurt, of pain, of shame, of ways that we've been scarred, right, and traumatized through all of our lifetimes, or even if it's just this lifetime. But it's also comes from the pollution in our air, the stuff they spray in the air, the stuff that's sprayed on the vegetables, the fruits, the genetically modified food. Even if you only eat fast food, there's a lot of GMOs, a lot of sprayed stuff in that. It's the water that we drink. It's all the medications. If you're on heavy meds, which I understand some folks who are dealing with depression take medications, there is a side component, not only that you might feel more suicidal or more depressed, which is so ironic, but there is this aspect of that it creates a lot for your body to clean up with regard to your liver and your kidney health. And so, and as well, okay, so it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's heroin, right? It's cocaine, it's crystal meth, it's all the stuff that if we keep putting inside of us, alcohol, that if we just keep putting inside of us, and we fill up, without having an exercise routine, without meditating, without drinking plenty of water, without eating some green kale, drinking some green juice from time to time, like the body is going to get acidic. The body is actually going to become the perfect place for more tar, Because the tar loves acid and the tar loves wallowing. You self-wallowing. The tar loves depression. It loves when your spirits are low, because that's when it can be high. But the tar body is an accumulation of all of this stuff that has not been processed. So if you're just sitting, as I did for years, in a lump, in the dark, in your room, and wondering, you know, when, how can I get out of this? The good news here is that the moment you have that thought, the moment that you go towards a consideration of moving away from the dark and into the light, that is the moment where you get to hop on that. That is the divine moment of happenstance where the vortex, the energy vortex for you to jump timelines is open. The vortex, meaning the sacred gateway that you see it. You're all of a sudden, for that split moment, you are not fully in the dark. In that split moment of feeling depressed, there is the light. And in that moment, you get to choose it by saying yes to love, saying yes to light, and whatever that means in that moment, by making that move in that specific way that will build your light body, that will feed your light body versus feeding your tar body. See, the thing about the tar body is that when we're depressed, we spoon feed it. I hate myself. You're feeding it. You're getting it stronger. I hate them. I'm no good. You're just feeding the tar body. You're just spoon feeding it all of the self-deprecation, all of the self-hate, the self-loathing, feeling unsafe, feeling like a victim. All that stuff is just spoon feeding the tar body, and it gets stronger and stronger because it lives off of our fear. And really, depression is fear-based. And eventually what happens is we are feeding this tar body so much through our self-hate and self-loathing and feeling that we are a victim and we can't help ourselves, that eventually we become so weak, we give the spoon to the tar body. And the tar body starts to spoon feed us back our own tar that validates self-hate, that validates self-loathing, that validates unworthiness, etc., etc., etc. And eventually, we know this on a higher level. We see, we know, our spirit knows what's going on a higher level. And we either choose to break out of that mold, or we see what's going on and we start to hit ourselves on the head with an energy hammer, if you will. Because we see on a higher level, your higher self sees the paradigm of what's going on. You are feeding the tar body. You are making this harder than it has to be. But for whatever reason, this is the depths of your journey right now. And it is to be honored. There is medicine here. There is such powerful medicine in getting close to death, in dying, in almost dying, in really getting face to face with your tar body. There's powerful, powerful medicine here. But what happens is you're spoon feeding each other, and you start to recognize that you're betraying yourself on a higher level. You recognize that you're just fucking yourself up more. You're digging the ditch even deeper. And you start to hit yourself energetically with the hammer. And just like the spoon, where you were spoon feeding the tar body, you become weaker and weaker and weaker until you give the hammer to the tar body, and the tar body just starts hitting you over the head with the hammer. And you just feel more and more isolated, that it's more and more challenging to be in the world and not of it. And that's where we're going. In 4D Trinity, what does this mean? This means we are moving towards fourth dimensional consciousness, which is the heart center. It's the heart center. And it's learning how to live in that heart space, how to relax there, how to feel okay there. And you know, there is a great disbanding of the tars in living in the heart space, in feeding the light body and starving the tar body. So how do we feed the light body? If I've got all this gunged up, these shields and these layers of tar, that surround me in my aura, well, again, first things first, you start to calibrate the root chakra. You go out into nature without a computer, without a phone, without music, and you breathe and you take off your shoes. Even if you live in a rainy area, you connect your feet to the ground. It takes maybe a few minutes of this to shift your energy, breathing those negative ions out in the woods, out in nature, help to shift the alchemy of your body. And that's number one, is just getting to the point where you're okay with being a body on the planet, right? That first anchoring of like, I belong, and choosing to nurture yourself. Anytime you feel the vortex is open and you can choose love or fear, it's exercising that spiritual will. And sometimes it's like bending that pipe and using all of your strength to say yes to love over and over again. And that's what we're doing. We, again, are building up our muscle, the musculature of our spiritual willpower. And when you realize that you are a multidimensional being, that you exist through all of these timelines, through all time and space, through all dimensions, and you can either be connected to all of those versions of you through sadness, through loss, through depression, through mental illness, through being a victim, through being hurt, through experiencing pain, violence, trauma, that you can either have those lenses of the past affect you and drive your present and your future, or not. Your light body, your spiritual will is saying, like, you are a multidimensional being. Are you happy? Are you content here with allowing all of these versions of yourself, of all of these patterns and all of this illness, mental and emotional, of all of this pain to walk with you, to keep walking with you? And sometimes I know you're that depressed where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking walk with this. Is my shit. When I'm ready, I will make the move, right? And that's how it was for me. But when you're ready, then you start to feed the light body. You start to exercise your spiritual will, that musculature that has the ability to choose love over fear, over and 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 over again. And that's how you start to build this shift in your energy body. The moment that you have an inkling that is towards kindness, towards yourself or towards others, if you've been isolated, locking yourself away in depression for weeks, for months, for years, the moment that you see that inlet that says there's a different way to see things, there's a way that is love and that is light, and whatever that translates into something that you can do for yourself or for another, do it. Hop on it the moment it is open, because that one little beam of light is your way home, is your truth. And the more that you recognize it and you honor it, the more of it will be given the way to meet you. The more that we feed the light body, the more that we allow ourselves to heal, to make peace with our past. Because really, whether it's hereditary, it's genes, or it's traumatic issues that you've had, as these things are looked at, they have less power. It's when we don't look at them and we talk about them as being something outside of ourselves that has a power over us, well, then it does. But the moment you turn around and you look your fear, you look your pain in the eye, you look your tar, your shadow in the eye, and you face it down, that's the moment that things start to change, that you start to shift the alchemy of your body, of your mind, of your emotions, and you move away from these openings in the aura, drawing more tar in, and you start to create a strengthening where the sheaths of your aura become strengthened. And you come back into learning how to walk and to maintain these clean, these healthy shields of your energy body. I think Will just hopped on here. Let me have a look. Blessings. Blessings, Will. Thanks for joining us. So the dark and light forces are very, very powerful when it comes to understanding the metaphysics of this mental illness. So let's come back to this idea of the tipping point and your spiritual will and your light body and your tar body. So if we imagine scales, right? And on one side, right, we have the happy face, and on the other side, we have the sad face, which is really, and I know I'm laughing right now because I've been there, wanted to leave this planet and this body several times. I've come around the other end several times. So, you know, I don't mean to offend anyone if I giggle or if I laugh at certain places, but you get to a certain point where you understand what seems so complex is actually so simple. And you start to laugh at yourself. I think when I was depressed, I just took myself so fucking seriously, like forever, for like 30, 40 years. I'm actually 222 right now. So for a big chunk of my life, I took myself so seriously in my depression and all of my pain so seriously. And I know it is serious. Yet there's a certain point, how long are you going to let those things, those memories control you? When are you going to choose to be a master of your time and space? When are you going to start to choose peace on purpose, peace within yourself, so that you don't have that nagging tar body spoon feeding you and hitting you over the hammer? Where you learn how to take back your willpower, your spiritual willpower, and understand that you are a fierce, multidimensional soul, and that your soul is unfuckable with. That is the point where things start to change. And until that change, then we are a victim. Then the past still is strangling us and pulling us through this seeming reality of the 3D, through more situations and circumstances that perpetuate that darkness and that fear. Yet, with this tipping scale, as we learn to cultivate that spiritual will, to choose love over and over and over again, what happens is, where the scale might have been tipped in the way of fear, we start to choose love. We start to say thank you. We start to forgive. We start to practice ways of cultivating more peace. And the tipping of the scale shifts in the other way. And you know, I like to think about this in the same way of when you work out, when you go to the gym, and I know even exercise is a tough one when you feel depressed. To even just get up out of bed is a big deal, never mind to go to the gym, right? That's probably not going to be happening, depending. But there's a shift that happens where your tar body on one hand has maybe had the best of you and the scales are really tipped in the way of fear. Yet you start to understand the metaphysics, you start to understand the way this energy works, and you start to work with it as you're divinely guided, and you start tipping the scales in the other way, where all of a sudden you've gone from being 20% light body, 80% tar body. You start to shift it to where you're 80% light body, 20% tar body, and where the light of you has its full presence, power, and capacity to be that which it is in its full power and authority. And as you generate and maintain that light body presence, when little flicks of tar come at you in the world through others or your own stuff maybe comes up, an old memory, like a fragment of something that you have been working on, releasing and healing, when that stuff comes up, you have gathered and garnered such a strong spiritual will, such power in your light body, that it just burns off those little fragments of tar that might come at you from the world, from your own mind, from others. I wrote down here, it's like muscles, right? When you go to the gym, I know for me, oh, interesting. The phone's ringing. When You go to the gym, and if you want to tone up, if you want to gain some muscle mass, the best way is to do the appropriate exercise for your body and to have then protein shake, protein bar, whatever it is, within 60 minutes after you work out. And that way you refortify and give back to the body that which is required. You've torn the muscle down. Now the body's job is to rebuild the muscle. And if there are not the correct amino acids, proteins in your body to do so, then your body's going to have to actually pull from your bones to remake its muscles, to build its muscle. And like this, though, when you work out and you have your optimum protein and your body is able to start building tone, building those muscles, what happens is this shift happens in the tipping point of your body, physical body, where you have enough muscle mass that it starts to burn off fat in your body. And ultimately there's so many formulas for working out, for losing weight. And I'm not talking about losing weight necessarily, but I'm talking about this chemistry and how this works with your light and dark body, your light body and your tar body as well. When you have garnered enough strength, enough muscle in that spiritual will department of choosing love over and over and over again, no matter what the situation, within yourself, outside of yourself, that light body is so illumined. And just the same way that muscle burns fat, your light body shreds the tar. So your ability to be in the presence of tar, even though it is less and less required, unless it is a calling and your work for you to do, but you have less and less the repetition of these situations in your life. But as you are met with them, your ability to be in their presence and to just see something that is very interesting, that is revealing itself as tar in your presence, you don't have to judge it, but you're like, oh, interesting. Your light body, shush, just burns that tar off. You are unfuckable with. It cannot touch you. And that's where we're going, is we're learning how to shift those scales from the unhappy face to the happy face. And I know when I was depressed, you could not crack a smile out of me. Again, I was very serious. Very serious. Oh, blessings. Farzin, you were here last week. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. As always, I pray and I affirm that all of the information I share here truly serves you. Your path of wellness, your path of sovereignty, which is you being free. I never understood sovereignty until just a few years ago, as really the roots and the threads of all my stuff that I've been walking with in my life and working out and healing finally just diminished. And I was like, oh, this is what sovereignty is. It's being so free in this present moment, to be in my true authority and power, like a queen, like a king, to feel and to be and to embody a majesty of yourself that is not drawn and governed by your past, by your mind being something that you cannot control, but is you being a full, powerful master of your mind through all time and space, and being able to hold that space for yourself and for others as you're called, as you move through life. And this creates a shift of the tipping point. So I'm looking over here at my notes. You know, are you an empath? Do you feel that you are an empath? Do you feel that you have come into this life as a sensitive? Perhaps you have. And that's a whole lesson in itself, right? But there are ways that we can learn how to master these abilities so that we can be here, present in this body, on this planet, without feeling that we need to hide, right? Understanding the metaphysics, even right now here, of this mental illness, which is the baseline of the metaphysics of how everything works energetically through light and dark forces, through understanding the light body and the tar body. As you gain an understanding to that, you start to realize your power, where your power lies as an empath, as a sensitive being on this planet at this time. Because you are psychic, and sensitive and feeling and seeing and hearing and sensing everything going on around you. And as you gather more light to you, and sometimes it's about wearing certain rings or bracelets or necklaces, you know, or ornaments, depending on the situation, to help maintain keeping your energy grounded. A sense of protection, if you will, if you use that word. Yet ultimately, the more light you bring into yourself, the more just mystically and alchemically you create these appropriate filters that fill the gaps where you would otherwise be open and more sensitive and just be hearing and seeing and sensing too much. And again, activating that root chakra, purposely getting into the earth plane. So I know there's a comment here. Before I read it, the Schumann resonance speaks to this heartbeat of the planet that is supposed to be 7.8 hertz. And there's plenty of information saying that that is changing, that it is raising, that it is lowering, but ultimately, the heartbeat, the resonance of the earth has a signature sound, a signature heartbeat, has a signature vibration, a signature frequency. We can imagine. Boom, boom. And when we go into nature, when we sit, we take off our shoes, we just hang out with a friend at the park, even just on a park bench, we feed the ducks, whatever it is. We gain a connection which opens up that root chakra that connects us to Mother Earth, whereby we can have a restoration of this divine, invisible, metaphysical, invisible first principle, that which is invisible, that which is the nature through which the way all things are connected in the invisible realm. Something happens. A connection occurs with Mother Earth that is restorative, that recalibrates us from the root, from our very place. Remember, at the beginning I was saying that defying depression, when it comes to understanding the metaphysics of mental illness, that first and foremost, it's understanding, it's accepting that you are a physical body on a physical planet. You know you're more than that. You know you're spirit. You know you're a soul. Or maybe you don't. But first and foremost, it's being cool with being like, I'm a body on a planet that is another body. And it's being okay. It's being okay with that, and it's understanding the power of the calibration of your root chakra and how important that connecting to the heart, I know you can't see it, to the earth, is all about ultimately this connection to your heart. So underneath earth here, we wrote heart, and knowing that earth and heart contain the same letters. And there's no coincidence in this. As we ground our energy purposely in attunement with Mother Earth, we resonate with the Schumann resonance. We also help to calibrate what is known as our circadian rhythm. This part of us that knows when it's time to wake, knows how to feel restful at nap time. There's certain rhythms that when we attune to Mother Earth, when we get enough sunlight, when we drink good water, eat decent enough food, etc. And really it has a lot to do with just sunlight, having a certain amount of sunlight. But what happens is that our body clock can naturally fall asleep when it's nighttime. Unless I know there's night owls and there's night shifts and there's all sorts of things that can sort of whack us out of our natural rhythm. But there's a natural sense where your body clock knows when to rest, when to rise, and there are certain funnels of energy that your body will have chemically through the day to help you wake up, to help you be present, and then to also to help you rest so that you can receive rest. And when you are rested, grounded, it is so much easier to have not only this connection to the earth, but for everything that calibrates from the root chakra, calibrates from this root of you having a connection to Mother Earth first and foremost, up through the rest of the chakras into the heart. So let's go ahead and read this. Sarihi, don't dim your light for anybody. Ooh, I'm just seeing this now, Sarihi. Okay, don't dim your light for anybody. Choose love for yourself. Not happy with, pardon me, my little computer here. I'm having a moment. Not happy with your life, know you have the ability to manifest change. Baby steps, some days brushing your hair and drinking water and sitting out in the sun is an accomplishment. Praise yourself. You are a one-of-a-kind entity and you have your own story. Beautiful. I think you should make Heart Earth Chakra shirts. That would be awesome. And Will says, cicada, circadian, yes. I don't know if you were here, Will, when I was just talking about that. I'm sure you are. You were. But there's these natural rhythms that help us to just be in a body on this planet with greater ease. And it's the foods, and it's the sunlight, and it's the water, and it's the being with her, being with nature. So let's see if there's anything else. You know, the aura. So we think about the root chakra, and the color red is the resonant color that resonates at the root chakra. Vitality, belonging, grounding, being. You know, the root chakra, in the teachings that I share, is all about being. The mantra, the affirmation for the root chakra is, I belong. I belong. And as the root chakra becomes activated, again, we were talking about this tube of light that you are and how the chakras align along the spine, the traditional 7 chakras. But there's a space between each chakra, and I call that the bridge. And there's a bridge between your first and your second chakra called the being bridge. And if your first chakra is not calibrated, given the correct conditions and opportunities to just be fortified and nourished enough for it to do its own wisdom, medicine, healing for you, then this being bridge, the space between your first and your second chakra, does not become lit up. And you see, when your being bridge becomes lit up, then you start to access your second chakra power, which is your power to be a creator, a manifester in this world. And I know when you're depressed, you're like, fuck this. I don't care about creating anything or doing anything here. I don't want to be here. I hate myself. I hate the, you know, I mean, that was my self-talk. Whatever yours is or was is yours. But perhaps there's a common denominator there. Yet as we open up that root chakra and we connect with those earth energies, again, our being bridge, this invisible bridge that bridges the first and the second chakra, becomes percolated, activated, fortified, and nourished. And then all of a sudden that second chakra is given that juiciness of life force from the root, from that energy moving up. And then that second chakra, which I believe and I teach, holds your personal here I am, becomes activated. And your personal here I am is deeply rooted to your heart center, to you living your best life, to you living your truth. Unabashedly, like a badass, without fear in the world. And because your here I am is stored, the seed, your seeds of truth are stored as your here I am, which holds the blueprint. And believe me, your blueprint is everywhere within you. It's not just in one chakra. But for the sake of this teaching, imagine your here I am holds all of the versions of you, all of the amazing divine guidance that you could ever imagine, wish for, and ask for, and how to manifest, how to co-create it in the world. That it's all in that second chakra. The truth of you is in your second chakra, and how to manifest and start to create and feel sensually, use your senses, connect through this earth plane with others through your senses on how to bridge that is all in the second chakra. And if that first chakra is not activated, does not have a connection to Mother Earth, then how are you ever, I mean, sure, there's ways, but for now, for the drama of now, how are you ever going to feel any glimmer or sense of attunement and alignment with your here I am, with the truth in you? Because your here I am is divinely aligned with the truth in your heart. And really the truth is truth. Wherever you find it, wherever you feel it or see it, your truth is your truth. And again, we come back to, we have free will. So like that post that I read you, when you're depressed, you don't control your thoughts. When you're depressed, you don't control your thoughts. Well, that's for sure. The tar body is controlling the thoughts. Your thoughts control you, is what this post says. Your thoughts control you. And that is certainly what it feels like. The tar body spoon-feeding you lies. Spoon-feeding you the perpetuation of reasons why you should hate yourself, hate your life, not get out of bed, nothing's worth it, etc., etc. Your thoughts control you. I wish people would understand this, is what the post says. And what I'm offering is that I wish people would I mean, I really don't wish anything. It is what it is. There's nothing to change. It's all perfect and divine, right? I'm not trying to change anyone. I'm simply offering tools, ways of seeing things that you may be guided, that could perhaps serve you one step at a time, one little glimmer in the dark, in the shadow, to see the light of yourself within yourself. Yet what I'm offering is that you can control your thoughts. You can choose. You have the free will to think whatever you want to think, and allow that to be a premise through which you can exercise your spiritual will, where you can choose love over and over and over again. So there's so much more. There's so much more. I'm going to have a look at this. You know, God on the God phone was saying to read something about death, and I'm guided to go into the back of the book, where is the manual for teachers. Number 27, what is death? So we're going to read just for a moment from A Course in Miracles, Manual for Teachers, what is death? Death is the central dream from which all illusions stem. Is it not madness to think of life as being born, aging, losing vitality, and dying in the end? We have asked this question before, but now we need to consider it more carefully. It is the one fixed, unchangeable belief of the world that all things in it are born only to die. This is regarded as the way of nature, not to be raised to question, but to be accepted as the natural law of life. The cyclical, the changing, the unsure, the undependable, and the unsteady, waxing and waning in a certain way upon a certain path. All this is taken as the will of God, and no one asks if a benign creator could will this. In this perception of the universe as God created it, it would be impossible to think of God as loving. For who has decreed that all things pass away, ending in dust and disappointment and despair, but can be feared? God holds your little life in God's hand, but by a thread, ready to break it off without regret or care, perhaps today. Or if God waits, yet is the ending certain. Who loves such a God knows not of love, because he has died, that life is real. Death has become life's symbol. His world is now a battleground where contradiction reigns and opposites make endless war. Where there is death, is peace impossible. Death is a symbol of the fear for God. So I can go on and on and on. This is very, very interesting, because in A Course in Miracles, it speaks to that there really is no death, and that life and death and everything that happens in between and on either side of it is a continuation, and that death actually doesn't really exist, that it is just one experience, but that we have marked it, and through our religions, that we have marked it that death is something to be feared. And I think, you know, in a way, what that passage was saying is that we've been taught that God has all of the power in religion, and that sort of holds us by a thread, and at any point, you know, we could die. And I spoke about this several 4DTs ago, because it's so interesting. For years, because depression, for me anyway, a huge part of it was having those suicidal tendencies. And really it is about death, living in that realm of dark and fear. But A Course in Miracles would say, again, that there is no beginning, there is no end, and that everything that is not love is fear, is illusion. And that religion has somehow given God all of the power to tell us when we are going to die. And this is what I was going to say, is that some time ago, I remember remembering that for many years, I agreed, and I would work with people that were in hospice or that were near death, that had several ailments and whatnot in hospice. And when it was time that they passed, I would hear myself saying, well, that's God's will. Even if I wasn't a religious person, which I've never really been, but I would hear myself saying those things, that it's God's will that this person is now passing, etc. Yet, recently, I read in A Course in Miracles that that's not what the belief mode is here in A Course in Miracles. The belief mode is that you choose when you die. It's not up to God. And so what I was just reading in that passage there, what is death, is that I think it's in a juxtaposition. It's showing us and it's telling us what we've been taught about death. What we've been taught is that it's not in our hands, is that it's up to God, it's up to some force outside of ourselves. Yet the truth is that there is no life and death as we've known it. There is no beginning and ending. That is a continuous flow of experience, and nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So this is a very massive, profound teaching in A Course in Miracles. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. And again, it speaks to what we do here at 4D Trinity is bridging fourth dimensional consciousness, heaven on earth realization, that living through the filter and the lens of the heart, through the unifying of the mind, the body, and the emotions. When the mind, the body, and the emotions are unified, that is when we can connect through the stairway to heaven, through the DNA, through the crystalline tube that houses all the chakras, that runs along the spine. It's when this energy is calibrated that we can, with great ease, have a connection to what is above and what is below, that being the divinity of your nature. And so, understanding that death, in a fashion of itself, is an illusion, and that we can override the illusion by choosing love. And the more love that we choose, the less distracted we become by this notion of death. I know for me that is the truth. I used to think about death all the time. And the more light I garnered, the more I strengthened my spiritual will, the more I worked, ironically enough, the more I worked with people who were dealing with death. Yet it was not triggering me. I could, as we were talking earlier, stand in the presence of that and hold space for others to go through their process. Now, I think I've mentioned everything on the board, and I definitely want to look at my notes, because there's a lot of notes here. With depression, what do you want to be true? Do you want to be sad? You know, be sad if you want to be sad, but do you want that to be true? Do you want that to be true for you? Because exactly where you bump into, when you realize, no, I don't want that to be true, that's the vortex being open. That's the opportunity for you to just place love there. So how do you exercise your spiritual will? In a very simple way, is every time you're in the dark, but that vortex of light comes your way, and you have that opportunity to exercise your spiritual willpower, you say, I place love here. Or you have a memory of something that's hurtful, that's painful, the trauma that's happened to you, that has marked you, I place love there. You simply get to become a master at placing love. You can think of it as a word, as an energy, as a feeling, but simply extending, placing love in all of those thoughts and all of those memories through all space and time as they come up is what's going to help you strengthen your ability to exercise your spiritual will. So I was watching some things online, and depression is the leading cause of disability. It is considered a disability in the world, the leading cause of disability in the world. We think about the light and the dark forces in this world. Well, that would show that the dark is winning in this way. And you know, I have, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put some links up throughout this. There's a talk I did some time ago, I believe, called The Earth's Char Body, and another part of it that's talking about activation, light body activation, galactic ascension. And I'll come back and I'll put those links here because they are interconnected. Disability is a physical or mental condition that limits a person's movements, senses, and activities. You know, but again, let's come back to this realization that depression, sadness, it's normal. It's normal to have highs and lows in our lives. And it's another thing for us to just be on a trajectory of getting lower and lower and lower and lower and feeling that our life force is being conflicted and constricted. And really the focus now is on death, is on fear. So there are these dopamine, I have them here. Let me see where they are. I had taken notes yesterday. So many notes. But there's dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And these are 4 major chemicals in the brain that influence our happiness. And dopamine is said to happen or to be conjured at the anticipation of happiness. So some people think it's at the happiness, but some scientists have said that it's the anticipation of something good coming into being. It's the anticipation of meeting that appointment, meeting that goal, of seeing this person, of seeing your friend, and that you get like a shot of dopamine. Because it's the anticipation of something good coming to happening, and that your brain releases these chemicals. Oxytocin helps us feel bonding and closeness with others. So this is where if you're really depressed, but you have that glimmer of light that is saying, come back out of this depression, choose love, choose light. You know, is there a way that you can volunteer your time? And even if it's not necessarily with people right away, right? If you feel that you don't want to be around people, but you feel very empowered to be around animals, there are so many shelters. My sister does this, where she would just go in. She has an affinity with beagles, with those dogs, those beagle dogs. And she goes into specific beagle shelters where these animals have been rescued from puppy mills. And she goes in and she cleans their cages and she holds them and she feeds them. And, you know, she takes care. She puts in, I don't know, an hour a week when she can. She's a very busy person, as we all are. But if you have time, these are the sorts of things that activate oxytocin. Maybe it's going into an old folks' home and it's spending time just visiting with them, even if you don't even know who they are. You know, it's these things where there's an interaction, spending time with a friend. I know even when you're depressed sometimes, even if you do have a couple of friends that you can like lean on, when you're depressed, you feel closed, you close yourself off from even extending and asking for help. Of course, the tar body does that. It's like, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to suffer and you're going to like it. And you're like, yeah, I like it. You right, hitting the hammer over the head. Yeah, actually, this feels good. It becomes normal. To live in fear and to live in the dark becomes normal. And what we're doing as we enter the space of the heart, as we ground our energy and we clear and we reroute all those fear-based thoughts, feelings, actions, emotions, reactions into love, into light-based forms. We are turning on our heart. We are turning on our third eye. We are learning to see in the light versus seeing in the dark. We are very good at seeing in the dark. all of the pain in the past and the sorrow and all that stuff is our medicine to learn how to eat, to process, to feel what it has, the teachings that it has for us, but ultimately so that we can come out the other end as a light body, as a light being. We learn how to master our time and space, our word and our thought. So, oxytocin, allowing ourselves to be around others that we love, family, friends, whatever it is, environments, being at the park, even just watching other people, having a good time can bring us restoration, can help to release the oxytocin. And then we have serotonin. And it's interesting because 80% of serotonin resides in the gut. And so regulating your food and nutrition connection is really vital to serotonin flowing in your body and to giving you those feel-good chemicals, that nurturance. Again, if we're only eating fast food or junk food and we feel like crap and we're depressed and suicidal, let's think about the diet and let's consider how that can shift. So there's a story on the sideline. There's a story, and I'm going to go off the cuff. I may not have everything perfect, but there's a person who has written a book called Wild Fermentation. And they have a ranch. Again, I'm shooting from the hip here, so I may not have all of the facts correct, so please forgive me. But to a fashion, this person, I believe, was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS, HIV, and now has brought his blood count to a point where you can't even see that he has that virus in him at all. And he denotes his healing to the changing of the chemical in his body, the changing of the chemistry in his body, rather, by eating fermented foods, by learning how to make and to eat fermented foods on a daily basis. And through having that good bacteria in his gut, serotonin, the nurturing, the nourishment of those proper foods that are going to activate and stimulate the good bacteria in his gut, that has helped to heal his body, helped to heal his mind. So that's just a side note. Endorphins are like morphine. They give us that good feeling in the body, and they are said to be activated when we exercise. We break a sweat, we feel good, we got some good, endorphins flowing. But it's also that when we push ourselves, you're on the treadmill, and maybe you're going really as fast as you can for 30 seconds, and then you slow down. You take a break, you walk it out for a minute, and then you go as fast as you can, and we're releasing endorphins in our body when we do this, when we're pushing ourselves. But also, it's when you sprain your ankle, and you're like, what am I going to do? I can't get up from this chair. I need some help. It's the endorphins that get released to help us get through that pain. Again, it's that morphine-like feel-good that help us get through that pain until we can get a friend to get us some crutches or get to the doctor or whatever it is. But all of these chemicals exist in our bodies already. And so how can we stimulate more of them? How can we activate more of them? How can we say yes to more of them? And it's 3D things. So again, is it volunteering? I remember when I was very depressed and through different cycles in my life, it was all about me. It was all about me, feeling sorry for me, feeling sad for me. And I had plenty of reasons. I had plenty of reasons for it to be all about me. Yet, when I started expanding my energy and doing work with the elderly, doing work with those less fortunate, with those people that don't have arms and legs, quadriplegics and wheelchairs and whatever, when I started extending my energy outside of myself, it was much more difficult for me to feel sorry for myself, for me to come back to myself in those same ways where the TARS, where the shadow had its deep grip on me. So I'm saying this because when you are met with your shadow and you are in deep depression, the moment you have a flicker of that light where the vortex is open and you have the choice to exercise your spiritual will to go through, to jump through that vortex, to choose again, to choose love over fear, if there's a part of you that invites you to explore. If you're at that level where you can actually get out of the house and perhaps put your name down to volunteer at an animal shelter, at a homeless shelter, at an elderly facility, whatever it is, that is going to help release your chemicals, the feel-good chemicals within you, to shift yourself from the tar body to the light body. So we have all of those chemicals within us already that know intuitively how to help us heal. So there's so much here, and I really don't know the length of what I'm supposed to say. I'll just let my higher self, my guides, guide me. So here I have a note. I've written loads of notes for this. Depression is as real as you say it is. So years ago, I had a dear family member who was deep in depression and going to therapy groups to participate. I want to make sure that I'm not missing any comments here. Let me erase this up. That was participating in therapy groups. And everyone, I mean, and again, I can laugh now, but you go in and everyone's depressed. Everyone's fucking depressed. And of course, I'm doing this at a point where I'm like coming up on a high. I had just come out of my depression. I had just learned, which is in my book, The Reiki Apprentice. And my depression at that time had come through taking LSD, getting my aura ripped wide open. Remember we had the picture of the aura with all of the fractures? With all of the fissures and the cracks in it, letting in all sorts of entities, lower, denser energies that contributed to my tar body becoming fueled, fed, and activated. Well, I became intensely depressed, was hearing voices in my head that were telling me to kill myself. I was seeing visions of the world being bombed by nuclear war, devastation. It was just like my opening up my channels and not consciously closing them up again was allowing all sorts of inappropriate forces and TARs to come in and help infiltrate and really take over my body. And this went for over a period of 6 months, and I had found my way out of this. I had learned how to master my mind. I was beginning to receive the divine sustenance of the universe before I met my teacher, before I learned Reiki and did all this. I was learning because at those moments when I had a glimmer of light within myself, I would pray and I'd say, please help me, God or love or whoever or whatever is with the light out there, my angels, whoever you are, help me. And in the 1 or 2 moments where I was able to ask for help rather than keep beating myself up with the hammer, the help would come. And so I learned how to dig myself out of that hole, little by little by little. In effect, as I was coming out of my hole, my sister was in her hole, and I was going to her therapy groups for depression. And I remember having this feeling that depression is as real as you say it is. I remember bringing up the idea at that group that depression is just an illusion, because I had broken through far enough to the other side of it to know this. Now, this idea at this group was met with resistance. People there did not want to hear that their depression was an illusion. But I feel that whatever I was guided to be there, it was to tell them that if you are open to allow this idea in, that depression is an illusion told to you by your tar body, then it's as real as you allow it to be and as unreal as you decide. We get to decide what has power over you, that which is real or unreal, ultimately. And again, this brings us back to A Course in Miracles teaching and just really understanding that your thoughts don't have to control you, that you can control your thoughts. And that is mastering your mind. And when you see those negative, evil, dark side shadow thoughts wanting to come and brim their way up, I place love there. I erase that and I place love there. I place love there, 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 there. And the more love you place, the more light there is, and the less dark can be dark in the light as you bring more light in. So, and with depression, basically we're talking about, are you willing to live or die a little more in each moment? Because that's what you're doing. When you're dealing with depression, you are either choosing on that spectrum death, darkness, lowering your spirit, not feeding the light body, or at those moments where you feel inspired and like you can, you have the opportunity to choose the light, to choose to drink from the well of love that is infinite and come back to the truth of you, which is the perfect blueprint of your mind, body, and emotions that match the true hologram of your unfuckable with soul, of your unfuckable with spirit. It's the tar body and the light body. What are you feeding? So we already talked about the tar body with the spoon. I pray and I affirm that these messages have truly served you. And I'm going to leave you with one thing. Are we supposed to do the drum? I think we might be doing the drum. Oh, blessings, expand, expand. Thank you for hopping on. So I think we're almost done here today. And I really appreciate any conversation or any comments. You know, my email is down below. We're going to do just a brief meditation with the drum. If you can't stick around, I know this is a bit of a long one today, come back and check out the end of this video. Because what we're going to do is we're going to just work on one memory. And we're going to take the first step with that memory to choose love. And that one placing of love is going to create a set point, especially if you suffer with depression, and this is a big thing that's up for you. It's going to create a set point that you can come back to and strengthen each other time that you choose love. And the more love that you gather unto yourself, the more light you gather unto yourself, the brighter and the clearer you can see the truth that is love is the truth. That is, there's nothing to fear. That is, the past does not exist. That you can master your mind. Yes, you can master your mind. You can master and control your thoughts, and it's one thought at a time. And don't be hard on yourself when you decide otherwise. But you can. I am here to tell you that I have done this for myself, and you can do it if you choose for yourself. So let me get the drum. And we will think about finishing up here. We'll take a moment to think about and really just let it come up. It's going to be that very first memory that comes up for you that we're going to work on. And whether that memory is something from your childhood, namaste, unfuckable. Yes, unfuckable with ability. That's us. But whether that memory that you're going to work on right now for just a few minutes is something from your past, or something just from the past of these last couple of years or few weeks, let it come up, and that's what's ready to be worked on. And again, the premise of why we're going to work on this one memory regarding depression, mental illness, and that's really any time that the tar body, that the shadow version of you wants to drag you down into self-defeat, into self-doubt, into self-destructive modes that are mental, that affect your physical bodies, health, stress, ailments, and that affect your emotional well-being, that keep you from being grounded, that open up your energy to inappropriate forces and entities. We're moving away from that. And as we learn to heal just one memory, little by little, that is rooted in the dark side, that is rooted in fear, that is rooted in holding us back from being our full, powerful, beautiful, sovereign self. As we heal that one spot, we are creating an opening, a set point for more healing to happen. And you just have to believe it. You have to just know that it is true. This is the metaphysics of healing depression, of defying depression, is knowing that you are not a victim. And if you're miles away from understanding that, if you're like, no, she's full of shit, I am totally a victim, then okay. When it's time, if this message resonates with you, I pray it does, because it has helped me in infinite fold, and I no longer have to live hell. I can actually live and enjoy this life. And it's a very different life. It's a very different life living in the dark than living in the light. I love when you guys talk to each other in the comments. So one memory. Let's take a moment. Let's take a breath. And this won't be a long one. We're just going to drop in and drop out, and then we'll finish up here this morning. But just take a breath and center yourself here. And we'll invite the drum. We'll invite in all of our angels, our guides, ascended masters, totems. Our higher self that is directly connected to source. Whatever name it is you give to God, to love, to the universe. We connect now to our higher self and are at once connected with love, with the nature, with the truth of all that is. And as we relax into this moment, we allow this one memory that has caused us pain, that has caused us to trip over ourselves, has caused us physical ailments, mental illness, emotional imbalance, and ungrounding. We call up this memory now and we place it in a bubble of light. We call up this memory now and we place it in a bubble of light. And this memory may be like a short film, a little vignette in your mind. It may be a picture or a series of pictures or simply a feeling. And in this bubble of light resides this memory that has created and caused a set point for fear, pain, to lodge itself into your memory of who you are through all time and space and all dimensions. So right away, for the highest good, we have placed this memory in this bubble of light. We call on the highest wisdom of this universe to place love here in this bubble. We call on our higher self to place love here in this bubble where this memory resides. We call on this version of ourselves that is sitting here right now, that is reclining, however you are here right now, participating, to send love and light into this bubble. So we have love and light being sent from the universe, from God, from source, from your higher self, and from you. Feeling, seeing, sensing this memory in this bubble of light, being filled with more love and light. And understanding and knowing that love and light is the quantum organizer, that we ultimately don't have to do anything but give way, but say yes, and create the correct conditions for love and light to flow, to be present within us, in our memories, in our timelines, and that we can allow that love and that light, that wisdom of that quantum organizing power of nature to metaphysically realign our memories, to metaphysically realign the way we react towards others, towards ourselves, towards situations emotionally. We see love and light in this memory. And perhaps as this love and light is added, we even begin to see this memory differently. Without forcing things to change in this memory, in this timeline, in this bubble, just gazing, observing, and noticing if you do, in fact, see or feel or sense a change towards the light begin to take place. And as you begin to simply observe this bubble of light that contains a memory of yours, and as you fill it with love and light, feel that holographically, this memory, as it is contained in all of the versions of you that exist through all of the levels of every time and space dimension that can be imagined and beyond it, through all of the quantum timelines and realities, all of those versions of you that hold this memory are now being healed, are now being healed, are now being healed through all time and space, through all dimensions. And so it is for the highest good. This light, this love that you bring into this bubble now is multiplied holographically through all of the memory that you are connected to, through the past, through the present, through the future, and for the highest good of all, is now alchemating, calibrating, healing and restoring to the frequency of love and of light. Now we're going to place this bubble of light, this memory that is healing, at the root chakra, at the very base of your spine. Imagine placing this memory that is now healing at the base of your spine. Doing this now, taking a breath in and a breath out. Feeling yourself, seeing yourself in nature with this healing memory calibrating at your root chakra. See yourself, take your shoes off and place your feet on the earth. Feel the heartbeat of the earth, even if you have to imagine it. Feel that heartbeat, healing, connecting, talking to the heartbeat within your body and creating a coherent union, a coherent bridge of wholeness by which you can understand who you are in a peaceful and relaxed state outside of the stress of this painful memory, outside of the memory of the memory. We ask the universe for the highest good to run point in creation, to go to the point in creation of this memory. And as it resides through our minds, through our bodies, through our emotional versions of ourselves, through all time and space and all dimensions, to go to the point in creation of this, that love and light be placed there, that these memories be washed to the degree, cleansed, purified, to the degree that they are willing to be, and that serve our highest good and the highest good of all, that love and light reside there now. That we no longer be puppets on the string, victims of the past, that this memory to the greatest degree is no longer contained in our cells, in the memory body of water that we walk with in this world. We thank you, we thank you. Love and light, we bless you, we thank you, we acknowledge you. The mere thought of you, the mere word, the mere act of you, love and light. We honor, we know your power, we honor the alchemating force that you are within us. And we thank you, all of our angels and our guides, our light beings, for being with us now, our totems. Here in this place, in the vision of your mind, you can keep your shoes off and keep connecting with Mother Earth, knowing that you are grounded, you are balanced, centered, and aligned in this world, in this body, and through all time and space, through all bodies that you inhabit. And knowing that this memory is being healed and is calibrating you with your root chakra, with Mother Earth, that you can be recognized by yourself, seen differently by yourself, seen differently by the world. And as this healing and calibration takes place from your root chakra in connection with the earth, feeling a beautiful reconnection and recalibration with all of the higher chakras, with all of the higher energies, with all of your energy bodies, with your heart, your truth, with the truth of you, as you reside in your full power and authority, your graceful beauty, your graceful knowing and trusting that all is well in all of creation, that nothing real can be threatened, and that nothing unreal exists. And so it is. Take a breath in and out. Take a moment to slowly awaken, bring awareness back to the room. So very grateful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this morning, for all of your comments, for this beautiful community. If you just hopped on There's a whole 2 hours of a show you can go back to. Thank you, everyone who's new to this channel. I'm so very grateful. If you are interested to join my monthly love letter, I send out a newsletter every month. Go down to the Show More box and it will take you to my website where you can sign up and subscribe there. And you will receive a copy of my book, The Higher Self. If you have friends that you know this video or any of the teachings that are shared on my channel would serve, send them a link. Share the information. I'm so grateful for your thumbs up, your comments, and all that good stuff. It truly comes from my heart. I love this platform. And just know that you can choose the love. You can choose light. You can learn to face your shadow down. And on a last note, there are a few, I started doing a podcast back in 2014 or 2015, and I had them on this channel, and then I took them off. It's a video, but it's really just audio. And there's a few pictures in the background, but there's 2 podcasts that I recorded when I was in the depths of going through the very last time when I was that depressed where I wanted to commit suicide and leave my body was in 2014. And I was inspired to make this series of podcasts called On the Verge, and where I'm in it. When you listen to these, you can feel I'm like in this. I'm as I'm talking to you, I am battling my shadow, and I'm telling you what you need to do to help yourself. So I've re-put them on. It's either under the playlist called podcast. I'll have to put some links when I come back through, but in case I haven't yet, you can search on the search bar at my channel. On the Verge. There's 2 podcasts, Shadow and Light of Self-Confidence, and then the other one is it's about being a warrior and forgetting how to hold your sword, and ultimately what we're doing. Oh, that I was talking earlier about the colors in the aura and along the chakras, and this is a whole conversation for another 4DT, but it's like each color has a lesson for us. We learn each color, and ultimately we learn how to hold all of the colors in our aura. Not just to just be one, and sure, there may be predominant ones at times, but we learn how to be all of the colors, the rainbow, to the degree where then the expression of sheer white light is because all of the colors are contained within white light. And so we're learning that. We're learning the initiation of that. And I feel like there's another point, and I could just go on and on and on, but I feel it's time to finish. I'm sure there was another point. I'll have to look back. The podcast. Check out the podcast, especially if you or yourself or someone is really on the verge. That's what it is. It's that we learn how to move from being a victim. For me, my story in my book and how I know this stuff works is because I've moved from being a victim into being a warrior, which was learning how to use tools and have certain shields, learning to use love as a shield, which really isn't a shield, but ultimately to build up my shields of love to the degree so that, again, that tipping point shifted, so there was less fear and more love and light, more power of that love and light, so that eventually I could learn how to put those shields down, the old shields that blocked, that was afraid of everything, fear, pain, and love and light. I learned how to put those down so I could walk and be in the world in a space that is love and only love that we talk about here. And another thing, so the book that I wrote when I was going through that last depression, when I recorded on the Verge podcast, is The Nowosphere. And it's free. Link is down below. There's a beautiful version of it on iBooks that has beautiful art. And there's the same version, but without the art, is on Kindle. And it's free. Read it. If you're going through depression, if you're learning how to walk, to move from being a victim to a warrior, to then dropping those shields, and really from that warrior becoming a master or becoming an alchemist in the world, read The Nowosphere. Blessings. Blessings. Blessings, Will. So thank you again, with so much love, with so much light, with so much namaste. I'm so grateful for this platform, for everyone being here. Thank you. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Feel free to email me with any ideas you have for any further shows. I'm very interested in the community and serving you. And as always, I pray and I affirm that everything I share here serves your true path of spiritual growth, spiritual mastery, and sovereignty. And so it is. Namaste with so much love, everyone. Blessings, blessings, blessings.